first presentation. One is, we know there's lots of questions, and questions will come up as we go through the day. So one gentleman mentioned that if you have a question, write it out on a piece of paper and put it at the end of the table, and we'll go around and we'll pick up all those pieces of paper, and we will answer your questions. But this one is particularly interesting because there may be some controversy over it. The question is, in the case study where the club did not notify the district who could have picked up the goods, can there be a process where there is upfront district-to-district notification? So in this instance, there could not be, because our district was not notified there was an issue until the goods were long gone, long gone. So, and also in the process of a global grant, the global grant is entered on the RI site. It is reviewed by our district, myself. It is reviewed by RI. I then, the application is completed. I authorize DDF, and it's out of our hands. It goes over to RI. RI does all the monitoring. We don't know what's going on. However, the MOU is signed. The district, host district, knows what's going on. If there's any communication between the club and the district, and the grant writer and the international club over here should know what's going on. In this instant, the individual, the grant writer, had a passion for this, a passion, and had been dealing with this country for years and truly believed that nothing could go wrong, right? So what that tells us is we can become too comfortable in a process. We can become so comfortable that we think we don't have to worry about any of the finer details. And this is what comes back to bite us. So we're not looking to point any blame here. We're just looking to, we don't learn by our successes. We learn by our errors. So we can thank this club. Thank you, because we have learned so much. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it over to Dick Sims, our foundation treasurer, and he's going to talk to you about stewardship. And please remember, if you have a question, write it down and we will attend to it.
I just wanted to let you know that I learned from Judy in her previous life. Okay, can everybody hear me now? All right. While I was off getting coffee, I heard somebody say, where do we find this stuff? Well, I happen to have a copy with me. This is the terms and conditions for Rotary Foundation District and Global Grants. It's available online. If you need a copy, let me know. All right? But everything that we're talking about today is in here, just not the pitfalls that we've been going through. The one that's most important to me as your treasurer is the Stewardship Foundation funds, and it's section 7.030 of the Rotary Information Manual. A good idea to have that when you start, especially doing international grants. Okay?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is the Rotary International Manual the same thing as the terms and conditions?
Yes. I like the easy questions. Just in case I leave you confused or you have another question just like that one, I left some of my business cards back there on the table. It has my email address, and I do get around to answering every one. So give me a holler if you have a question. All right? We're jokingly saying I'm about to become the most popular guy in the district because this is when we start writing checks for all the grants for 16-17. This training is for 17-18. I hope we all know that. Okay. I'm on the bottom button. Where's that part of the manual I missed?
I was only given this job on Tuesday, so I'm not much more trained than anyone else. Oh, there we go.
I can operate from over there if you'd like. It's the computer that's frozen.
Okay.
Ah! That's Bob doing that.
Oh, this is me. There we go.
Okay,
Press down.
great. Okay, again, I'm going to talk to you about stewardship. And this is the one that affects most of our clubs most dramatically, aside from the political issues, because it's money out of your pocket. So, stewardship is relevant because it affects all of us, and especially it affects your club and your district. And what we need for stewardship is to make sure that we have responsible financial management, and I'll go over that a little bit in just a bit. And then corresponding accounting practices. I know we're not all CPAs or public accountants, but we need to learn those tools in order to get through the grant process. Oops. You did well. Thank you. I can see it's going to be fun trying to keep up here. Okay, what does it mean by stewardship? We are all collectively responsible. You might say, oh, well, that committee has it, they're taking care of it. Don't stop there. Ask the question. If you have a question, ask it. Because if you have a question, maybe we at the district have a question. And that's the way you get them answered ahead of time. The quicker all that stuff is done, the quicker I get to write the check. And I like writing checks. You didn't know I could sing, did you? Which way am I going? Okay. I'm afraid to push a button now. We all need to ensure that the money is used for our intended purpose. And hopefully you've all been involved in the grant process, grant writing process. And these are all voluntary workers, us, and people we get to help us. And we have to reward them, if you will, with hard work and dedicated support. The stewardship policies I just pointed out to you, if you have a question, look it up online. It's there. Now, what do we get with proper grant management? First of all, we get successful projects. I know we've been talking about the problems. Let me assure you that 90% or 99% of them go through without a problem because they took this training and they followed the instructions. We have to maintain Rotary's mission and reputation wherever we go with our projects. And I've had comments say, oh, well, we're just giving dictionaries to kids in our local school district. Well, what are we doing? We're branding Rotary with that, aren't we? So it's still an important mission. We have to develop a culture of financial accountability and responsibility. Keeping you awake? Gotcha. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you say you're going to spend the money for something on the project, spend the money for only that on the project. And we need to maintain our donor confidence. If your club is like my club, we get lots of outside money, and we tell them what we're going to do with it. And when we're done doing that with it, we tell them that we did it. Okay. And then what happens when things go wrong? We just kind of laid the groundwork up there. We lose that community confidence. Or you get magic sounds coming out. I think everybody gets the picture. We need to maintain our community stature. Okay. One of the most important things we've come up with since we went into the grant management process at the local level is the MOU requirements. If we do the MOU correctly and follow all of these requirements, 99% of all the projects would just come out fine. You wonder what the big problem was. Yes, ma'am. Oh, memorandum of understanding. Okay, the memorandum of understanding is between you and, in the case of a global grant, the international club. In the case of a local grant, it's you and your club. If, in fact, it takes some activity by the recipient for your grant locally, they need to be on the MOU also. You betcha. You betcha. I hope that answered the question. Okay. We need an annual financial assessment, and that, of course, is just basically telling your club how you did and that you did it right. We'll be touching on each of these later. So setting up bank accounts, I'll touch that in more detail. Reporting, again, I'll touch that in more detail, but one of the biggest things we find, especially in my club, we start these half a dozen projects, we don't tell anybody about them. All of a sudden it's done, we have our end of the year report, and everybody says, we did that this year? If you have a club that has 96 people in it, it's pretty easy to miss somebody. So remember to keep reporting and report to your club. Bob will need the rest of the reports. The document retention. If, in fact, you're buying things, for example, we just finished a dictionary project for the third grade kids for our school district. In order to complete that, get the funding and all the rest of that, of course, we had to keep the invoice, the freight, the receipt from the schools, etc. So we have to maintain all of that stuff. Stewardship plan, we're doing that now, but we need to make sure we enforce it. Responsible financial management is just what it says. Make informed purchase decisions. In other words, you don't just go to your brother-in-law who says, oh yeah, I can get you those, no problem. The worst words you can hear in stewardship is no problem. Did you bring me the invoice? Oh, I'll get it to you, no problem. You can see where that's headed. Believe me, we see it. And clubs, especially in district grants, are missing their money for months and months and months because they can't just do these simple things. So even if it's your friend, your neighbor, your brother-in-law, whoever, and he says, no problem, say, yep, it is. Get it to me before I can pay you. Anytime you have a financial transaction, it has to be transparent. In other words, if somebody in your club asks, what'd you do with that money that you're going to buy dictionaries with? You have to say, I bought it from Houghton Mifflin, and they shipped them on da-da-da-da date. If you have to tell them, oh, we'll get you the information, don't worry, start worrying. And then, of course, we need to maintain a complete record of all the financial activities. And if you don't get that to Bob and Judy, they won't tell me to write you the check. Pretty simple. Do hang on to it. I know that Bill mentioned it, but I want to emphasize it again. Project committees are responsible for determining and managing the grant funds. And the important thing is committees. Don't just have somebody say, oh, I have a project, we can do this, and then go do it. Make sure you have a committee. Make sure they follow all the rules and regulations of our stewardship. I heard someone say, isn't this kind of new? It is. Some of the stuff is new because we went through the, what was the name of the program, Bill? Yes, okay, Future Vision, where we took over the responsibility for all this stuff. And now that's why we're training it, okay? It's a collective responsibility. Don't let them say, oh yeah, no problem, we got that. Get the answer, get the answer. And monopolizing grant opportunity is a great place for misuse. That's where someone says, well, hey, you know, we didn't need dictionaries in this class. How about a tape recording? And our grant application said dictionaries. What did we just do? We changed it. Is that misuse? Might have been a great project, but it is misuse. And one of the things to help us keep track of all this, and we really recommend this, is every week, I assume you all have a, for the good of the order statement period at the end of your meetings. Just set up a one sentence statement to stand up every week and say, for the good of the order, I'd like to report that the dictionaries were shipped. Or I'd like to report that the dictionaries were delivered to half of the schools. Keep everybody involved. These are pretty self-explanatory. If you're ordering something from someone, make sure you get competitive bids. And by some mechanism, you know the Rotary paid the lowest price. Okay? If you can get a bidding process going, great. Do it. Especially on international projects. Makes a big difference. And the vendor selection and the price point should be clear to the district, that's me up here and back there, and your staff. Okay? Your committee needs to be able to say, we chose Bill's service because it was the most economical. We chose John's service because it provided the most service. Make sure we know the reasons. Hi, Sally.
I think you addressed it because you said make sure we get the lowest price. At sometimes when you're a competitive bid, the references are not as good on the lowest bid about delivery and execution. So if you choose a different bidder, can you give that reason?
Yes, yes, yes. Just make sure everybody's involved and you're all on the same page. Okay? Write that description. We chose this person because they deliver every year. We didn't choose that person because every other year they miss. Okay? Isn't necessarily always the lowest price. I guess that's what we really were getting to, wasn't it, Sally? Okay. If prices change during the implementation of your grant, what do you do? Communicate. There you go. That's a good one. All right. You need to let the grant managers know that you got a problem. If it's material And if you read this, you'll find out what material means. Generally, it's 10%. That's not always true, so don't take that to the bank. If it's material, you need to start the process over again. Get an improvement to your grant application. Don't let it just fall by the wayside. And do it timely. Don't wait till oh yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the process when we send in our grant application. Do it now. Do it now. And if it's a material and it's international, you may even have to stop the project until you get that corrected. So be very careful. Okay? Well, the last tip gives it to us. Get approval for the changes in prices or quantity. And quantities change too. You might get to your new outlying area with your international club might be too far away to help. And so you get there to do the implementation and find out there are twice as many villagers that need that water or need whatever you're providing. Yes, ma'am.
What about exchange rates changing during the process?
We never heard of that. That will be handled in the global grant reporting. Okay? If you know you're going to have some fluctuations, you might build it in as a catch-all, as an alternate type thing. But yeah, unless it was stupid, like double. But generally that won't affect you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. I will.
Okay. Contingency line, when you're saying build it into the grant, but is that changed? TRF doesn't want us to put that in.
You can put a contingency line in, and that's a great place for exchange rates.
Yeah. So that's allowed now.
Yes. That has not changed, correct? Okay. That we could put a contingency in our grant application in the budget. Yeah. Okay. Be sure you get that receipt for every time you buy goods or services. Again, don't let them say, oh, I'll get it to you. Don't worry about it. You will be worrying about it when the deadline for your grant application comes up to get it finalized and get paid. And then I get to field those questions, and I don't like that. Always make your payments directly to a vendor. Don't say, well, give me the money and I'll go get it from somebody else. Try not to do that. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but try not to do that. There are too many places for it to go wrong, and too much misinformation can be handed out so you can't finalize your grant. And remember Bill's comment, if we don't finalize it, you get to pay it. Always make payments by check. And this is sometimes in international flavors you can't guarantee that will always be the case. But if you're not able to write the check directly to the vendor, make sure you have the flow in process where this person gets the goods, gets a receipt, la da 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 da, all the way back to the treasurer. I know I'm making myself sound awfully important, but if I can't write the check, I can't look you in the eye. If you can't get all that information back to Bob or Judy, they aren't going to tell me to write the check. So make sure you have a flow. If you can't write the check, get receipts. If you have to pay for it in any other manner, get receipts with signatures of people who are involved in the project. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
You're saying not to wire funds to the road
No, I didn't say that.
Pay that.
No. The vendor.
I know, but you're
The
saying
ve-
because say to the vendor, not give it to the Rotary Club.
No,
To pay.
no. You would be sending the money to the Rotary Club, and they in turn, by your MOU, would have to buy from the vendor and get that receipt. Okay? And then not last, but one of the things we need to do is maintain a ledger of payment activity. That includes the date of the transaction, the check number, receipt, if that's the way you have to do it otherwise, check number, payee, amount, purpose of the transaction, and a signature from someone who received it. And I don't need to tell you where we go if you get a receipt that doesn't have a signature on it.
That word reviewer should be a receiver then.
On this particular one, the person that reviewed the transaction should sign it. That's not the receiver. That's the person that reviewed the ledger. That's me or you, one of your committee members in your club. Okay? To answer your question? Okay. Bank accounts. This is an awful easy one to go astray on, but make sure every single grant, I'm not talking about district community grants, but every single grant has a separate bank account, and the bank account name titles it. Okay? And then you have to have at least 2 Rotary signatures, and that's pretty standard throughout Rotary, so that shouldn't be any difference for you. But get 2 Rotary signatures. That's someone looking over your shoulder when you write that check. They should be low or non-interest bearing, and that's pretty standard anymore because I don't know anybody's giving out interest. And again, make sure you have a separate account for each grant. Save your bank statements because they go with that grant paperwork. And if in fact you have to make direct payments, those withdrawals have to be documented with the bank. Yes, sir.
Seems like you just said something about that separate account. You said not for community grants.
We have a lot of community grants that do not have a bank account. That's the only purpose. Okay. For example, I'll just use one we just finished. The dictionaries. We bought $9,000 worth of dictionaries, but we didn't have a separate bank account. We bought it out of the foundation. Okay. Had we have been giving those to an NGO or an international club, we definitely would have had to have it. Okay. That was just a community grant. And then if you have excess, who's ever had excess? Well, I don't need to go any further. Either return it or seek approval to use it in another manner to help out your project. And now questions. I see 3 hands. Start with you.
The first one, it appears that most of what you're talking about applies most directly to global grants, and the way I understand it, the requirements for community grants make it somewhat simpler. So I don't think it's clear when we're talking up here that, it wasn't clear to me that we were primarily talking about global grants.
And that's probably my fault because I worry about the ones we need to worry about. The community grants generally are, lower in amounts and something that you take care of in your own little community. Okay. I can think, Bob?
If I can comment on that.
Sure.
For the community grant, you do not receive foundation money until you're being reimbursed. So whatever processes you use in your club to do spending and accounting, that's what you do. We're not going to do any foundation money. The reason you have a separate bank account is you now have received money from TRF. You're responsible for it in accounting. With community grants, we're simply reimbursing you after you complete the grant.
Bob said it very well. If you got money from TRF, separate bank account. Pretty simple. Yes?
With respect to,
I'm afraid of you after listening to your explanations.
I'll try to behave.
Okay.
With respect to global grants,
Yes.
it is possible you may have several districts involved. The information we're going through today, is that transportable to other districts? Or do districts have their own rules?
What are your MOUs? What did they say? You're going to have to organize that all within the MOU for the project.
Well, I'm asking about the funds. You know, in our district, the maximum that the district will match for a global grant is $15,000.
Okay?
If there's another district in Kansas City, is that the same limitation they have, or could that vary?
I'm going to let Judy answer that one.
Each district has their own limits as to what they will match and how they will make the decision to match. And whatever district you may be partnering with, there has to be an MOU involved. So to answer your question, we have certain regulations. We don't necessarily know what the other districts have as their criteria, but the district you're working with, they know, and it has to be spelled out in their memorandum of understanding.
So there would be an MOU between my club and our district
Yes,
for this to start with.
yes,
Okay, that's
yes,
standard.
yes, yes.
There is an MOU between our club, which is the international club, with the host club.
Yes,
And then there will also be another MOU
Partner.
between the district and any other district.
not between us, between you and any other district, because they are putting money into your global grant. So they're all partners, they're your partners.
Okay, so you do not need to review that.
No. But keep in mind, if we give DDF, we want you to be the lead. Okay? So, and this is all spelled out in your funding plan, in your funding, right? How you're generating all of your monies, that has to be all clearly stated. You're looking for 15,000 from 5020, you're looking for 7,000 from 5060, you're looking for 3,000 from 7180, right? That's fairly common, very common. But there will be agreements between your club and those specific districts.
And are those MOUs similar to the?
I don't know. It's district specific. You have to work with those districts.
Follow up on his thing there, it's not clear where the requirements are coming from. Does Rotary International have a separate set of requirements for Rotary grants, and are those requirements designated? In other words, it would apply to all districts in general, as opposed to just district-specific requirements.
We're going to go over that when we go over the global grant section, okay? But this is just relative to Dick's presentation.
Yes.
I've often found it appropriate to maybe allow upfront payments for goods, but require payments for any services or labor to be handled on a reimbursement basis. Is that a good way to approach those things?
Put it that way in your MOU and see if you get it approved. Well, I can think of 180 degrees with your question. You know, one is good, one is not. So if you have a question like that, go ahead and put it in your MOU. If there's any way you can make the payment and get a receipt, do it. Way back there. What? Okay.
we want to see how that plays out, right? If it plays out okay, and that the club's working together, has done a fabulous presentation, and they've identified what the rules are involved from all of this. So that has to play out over the steps.
Can they transfer Google Docs to you?
But getting back to this about the MOU, memorandum of understanding, you make that relevant to whatever your project proposal is. So you define the rules. You define who's doing what in that MOU. You sign it, they sign it, then you're on the hook for it. Okay, but it's something you created.
I just use that as an excuse not to answer his question. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I found, we just did a global grant, and just a suggestion, I found it very helpful that TRF will, for a small fee, help you transfer your funds to the right account in your host club, et cetera, so you don't have to worry about getting the funds there. And I thought, it was worth that small fee.
Did everybody hear?
We sent all our funds to TRF, and they tell you exactly how to do it, and how they credit each club that's involved. And they in turn will transfer the funds to the host country.
So long as there's an MOU completed and, okay, all right. We didn't skip that step, folks. Yes, Michael.
What if you have a global grant with not only a host Rotary Club, but a cooperating organization, and they are the experts in the field, and there's a case for them to control the bank account, and maybe they would, not their host Rotary Club. Does that ever work?
That, I'd say no. I can think of lots of examples there, but generally you want to have Rotarians keep control of the bank account. Okay? Put it in your NGO, MOU. MOU. Okay, I have a question from up here. Are clubs using Google Docs for document retention or Club Runner? Question mark. Anybody using Google Docs? Okay. And are you able to transmit them to Bob?
Yeah.
Okay. He's going to give me that. I don't know.
Well, to me, if it's not in Club Runner, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
I would kind of reverse that question. Why isn't Rotary International using a modern technology like Google Docs instead of Club Runner?
Next subject.
Why don't I take over?
Why don't you take over?
May I make a comment about Google Docs? For those of you who are using Google Docs, you have not read about the biggest phishing scam. Please let me know, because I've actually received the scam email. So there's some things you might want to be aware of and just check. I'd be glad to have on the information.
Relative to Google Docs.
Yeah.
Somebody who says, I've got a document here for you, click on it, put it on.
And they get access to everything, your contacts, they get access to a whole bunch of things. So it's just something to be aware of when you're using it.
Thanks. Well, let's talk about district grants. First, I've got a couple of items before we get into the slides that have come up here. One thing on Club Runner, what it's good at and what it's not good at. It is good at documenting your grant. So that's what it's good at. It's not good for communication. We don't use it for communication. To the lady's question back here of why can't the whole club look at Club Runner, I would turn it around and say, why don't you have the whole club involved in the grant? And I'll give you an example. I ask people, when you set up a community grant, that you set up an address group that includes both me and Judy, your club president, your assistant governor,
anybody else in the club who's interested in it. And 95% of the emails I get are from one person addressed to me. I don't have time to go back and build the address group for you. I've tried that. I have to look up what area you are, find out who the area governor is, get them included. I know Judy's email. So the point I would make with communication within the club, we use Club Runner as a document retention and archive. It is very good at that. Your grants are auditable by TRF for 5 years. It makes me nervous when we have issues with grants that get reported to TRF, because in today's world, it's easy for them to get on the Club Runner and see what's going on. In the old world, where the records were stored in Bill's garage, it was a little bit harder to get access. So as we talked earlier, you are subject to clawback for 5 years for that money. We want the archive to be a very good picture and narrative of what your club did. Now, to get the rest of the club involved, and I'll get into this in a bit, it's best to do that by email. Let's see. The communication group is important. I was asked to talk about the training year. This is the last of 3 trainings for next Rotary year. The first one was in Lakewood last September, and then October in the NIMO, and then this one. That has been our traditional training year. 3 items, 1 in the US, 1 in Canada, 1 at the DTA. That is changing next year. We're going online. So it'll be a little bit different. And the flying fish in the NIMO is going to be much poorer for my wife not being there.
You're only running at ACLTA?
No, let's clarify what year you're talking about. Next year. Next year, it will be online training plus DTA. There will not be a Lakewood or a Nanaimo training. They're gone. And then the year after that, perhaps the DTA training will be optional. We're trying to work our way through this to see what we need to do.
Is that optional for renewal or just for initial training and renewal?
Initial training and renewal after we get through this transition. So one of the things we're trying to do, and Bobby is helping with this, is build up a library of some resources for people to go online and look at that. Now, speaking of online stuff, yes? That's a possibility. Okay. Well, we know when it is next year. Yeah.
So is this, you have to attend both, or you can do it online in lieu of?
Once we get through the transition, you will do online in lieu of DTA. But next year to qualify for 18-19. Yes, we're requiring that now. That might change depending on our experience with how the online goes. You know, I've been working up questions. It's really good to find questions to ask you because I have this whole list of errors that people make. So I could turn those around into questions and see if people have gotten that. Online access. I'm not going to be talking about Club Runner this much. We used to have slides in here to show you go here, go there, and it didn't really help much. What I've been building are little 5-minute YouTube things. If you go to YouTube and go to District 5020 grants, I've got 3 of them there now, and I'm intending to build out 3 more. So there's something like a 5-minute one. How do you put in initial grant application? Funding cycle. So you understand, we're different. We, the community grants, are different from the global grants. The global grants are dealing with DDF up here, district designated funds, that are held at the foundation that money is there and it keeps getting carried forward till you spend it. What we have to spend in the community grants is money that comes in during this Rotary year. And the way we get that money is we build a spending plan for the money. We have a 20% contingency we could put in there, so we need 80% applications, if you would, of you saying you're going to do this. That goes into the spending plan. Part of our spending plan is $15,000 for a district ambassadorial scholar. Rotary did away with those. The district has decided to keep the ambassadorial scholar. So there's $15,000. If they get it, Dick writes the check locally. If what our scholarship committee, what John tries to do, is to get them qualified for a global grant, which would be $30,000. And the good part for me is the $15,000 from the district comes from the DDF up here, and I have $15,000 more to do for grants down here. So we have the initial cycle of the applications coming in. We have the possibility that we have money released by the ambassadorial scholar. And then what I started this year is questioning people in December as to whether they're going to be able to complete the grant, because last year we returned $28,000. It went back to DDF, but we did not get to spend it locally because people were hoping they could get it done. And believe it or not, Judy and I have 2 community grant applications that still have not been approved for this year. They say they're going to be able to do it. So I think that's $35,000 that's going back to DDF. Appropriate receipts. Some of the things we learned, there are appropriate receipts, and then there are ones that I no longer consider appropriate. So if you type up on your computer, I received $2,000 to ship a container to, and have it signed by somebody, I think there's more paperwork involved in shipping a container overseas than you typing something up. So I would question that. The question came up about changes in scope of the project, and we've been through that. I guess a good example is SQUIM. Anybody here from SQUIM with the Boys and Girls Club? Yeah. The initial thing, they went in and they had their little dream list of what they wanted to do. Then they brought in a restaurant equipment person and said, you're nuts to get rid of this. You know, these things are valuable on the secondary market. You ought to do this and this. So we wrote up a change in scope in that, got that approved, and moved on with that. One thing else you'll see compared to community or district grants is a lot of our stuff does not necessarily fit into the cubby holes of the details of the 6 areas of focus. So what we use is this definition of humanitarian over on the board behind Sally, and that's also on the website. So with that, let me get working with this. Quickly, clubs must be qualified annually. We've talked about that. The reimbursement is up to $3,500. The club funds it initially up front. That's why you don't need a separate bank account for it, because you're dealing with your own club internal accounting. Not just check writing, we need Rotarian involvement. And this is difficult for some of them, but we really want to see the Rotarians get involved in something, doing something. It's approved districtly, could be local or international. There's no requirement for a host club. It can be joint with other clubs. We need project MOUs with participating third parties. Our window is going to open mid-May. People asked me, when are we opening this? This is a Judy limitation. Judy has to input all of you into the system before we could turn it on, so it's fair to all of you. And along that line, what all of you need to have to check on is to make sure you have a club MOU on file for next year. Because even if you are qualified personally, if you don't have the club MOU, you cannot get access to that. And if you have a question, send me an email. I could check on your club. Project work is between July 1 and May 1, final report by June 1. And what we're doing there, we have this money for the Rotary year. It is not a global grant. It doesn't carry over. At June 30, money goes away. Dick has to return money to the foundation. And what he returns goes back to our DDF, so we get to keep it, but we don't spend it locally. So in that regard, too, with reporting, start your reporting early and often so that if we have a question, you have a chance to resolve it before the slipper goes away. All processes are internet-based, no paper, it's on Club Runner. As I said, Club Runner is very good at archiving the data. I've got those YouTubes to show you how to go through that. The whole other side of the community grant area is you maintaining communication with your club, with your assistant governor, with all the other people who are playing in this environment. If you just do this as the Lone Ranger and something goes sideways, you don't have anybody there along with you. You want to make sure everybody knows where you're going. 2-year process, year 1, getting qualified for the next year, making sure you have the club MOU. You might even have your application and project MOU done. The next Rotary year is the execution year, getting ready to execute it. A little background, 2014-15, we had 46 community grants. I broke down the Washington clubs in terms of local versus international, and the BC clubs. I joke that the BC clubs follow their migration pattern. You can see where they are in the winter when you read their grants. Here's some of the countries we deal with. Here are the ones for 15-16. Same type of thing. We had one multi-club grant. I'll get into that. We started that. And we had a total of 8 canceled and money returned. And primarily because we're getting close to the end of the year and people are hoping that it's going to work and hoping it's going to work, and then they realize in June that it's not going to work. So that's why I'm going out in December to say, can you actually complete this grant this year? Because that gives me time to turn around and get some things done. I've got 4 grant applications sitting there waiting for free money from this year, which probably are going to get, just pushed aside. Some of the local examples that people do. Can you read that, or should I read some of the? So local things, international. The Rachel, remember I had that turned on back there. If you weren't here in the beginning, what Rachel is remote area community health and education something. But it's sitting there on your smartphone. You can pull it up. It's a Wi-Fi signal. They do these in schools. There's K-12 textbooks in there, both in Spanish and English, Wikipedia, Khan Academy, a bunch of other stuff. Some issues in communication. I said Club Runner is not very good at communication. So when you put in an initial grant, you will get 1 email from Club Runner that says your grant has been received. From then on, we'll be communicating via email. And this is where I ask you to build an address group. It's much easier for me because I've got 40-some grants now that are trying to close out. And when we turn it on, I'll have about 40-some grants that will be communicating with me. And when you send me an email that says, "Hi, Bob, what's the status of my grant?" without giving me just your name, no grant number, no year, it's hard for me to sort that out. So use your grant number in the subject line and then create an address group so that we could communicate with everybody. the AGs want to help you, but if they're not involved until something went sideways, they don't have the background. Some transparencies. If we took a poll, pardon me? Assistant governor. For your local area. Area governor. If we took a poll in here, half the people would say there is no possibility you could have a conflict of interest in Rotary, and the other half would say, you're kidding me. So we've had cases like this, and the problem with it is it sends a bad message both to people in the club and to the community. You know, we had a situation where the president and the president-elect, and these are the two people who signed the MOU, were employees of the beneficiary for the grant. And half of the people would say, no big deal. The other half would say, conflict of interest. But the problem I see with that is, what does it say to the community? It says, if you want to get money from Rotary, what do you have to do? So sort that out. Oh, we've got a case now. Sally will mention it. But our president-elect had to drop out. So the president nominee is coming in next year as a president. So we're having the president and the secretary sign. We just want to have a chain of contact in the club so we have someone to go to. It's always interesting to me, particularly in December when I send out emails and I include the president in it about what's the status of your grant, and I get an email back that says, what grant? Reporting, I put in appropriate receipts there, again, just to mention that. And photos. So in the Documents tab, and I'll make up a YouTube on this and show you some that have been very successful. We want to have proof of life photos. If you said the computers got to this school, it would be nice to see the students with the computer, just to verify that that happened. And if you could give them descriptive names, I get a lot of JPEG 05, JPEG that, you know, if you're going through and you're trying to figure out what's going on, it's a little difficult. So the receipts, I have a prop here. If you could go to Dollar Tree and get a receipt book for $1. And if you're out in someplace where you can't get a receipt, have them write them up, put their ID number on it or something, have them sign it, just so you have some chain to prove that something happened. And the photos, one that comes to mind where that didn't work, had a grant early on where they took some equipment to a third world country, and the Rotarians were going down to build sheds to protect the equipment from the weather. Well, they had the receipts for the equipment. They had no receipts for the lumber. They had no pictures of anything completed. They had no pictures of the Rotarians even being in country. I said, do you have something from the airport or a bar? You know, nothing. Now, in today's world, there's probably about 10 cell phone pictures that have been taken in here today. You know, it's not credible. Memorandums of Understanding, there are two of them. The first one is a club MOU. What the club MOU is an extension of the district's MOU that we have with the Rotary Foundation. And in that, we're accepting responsibility for the care and feeding of the foundation money and accounting for it. This is where you are accepting it. And the MOU covers both districts and global grants. We need one each Rotary year because things change. You know, one of the big changes this year is the simple school and the low-cost shelters. Yes, sir.
Where is the format for the club MOU retained? Where do you go to find it?
On Club Runner. And I think we have it both outside of the grant module and inside the grant module.
That's the district website?
The district website on Club Runner. So when you're dealing with the grants, there are two pieces to Club Runner. One is the overall public website. And if you go under Foundation and Grants, you'll see the Club MOU for 17-18 there. If you can get into the grant module, it's under the district grant documents on the left-hand side of the grant module. Or if you have a question, send me an email and I'll send you a copy. Yeah.
Are you going to be giving us a thumb drive with all this kind of information this year?
No. No, we stopped the thumb drives. I know. It just, yes.
So we'll have access to the grant module after our names are uploaded after this training is over.
Right. Judy?
I will have you all entered by the end of this week, as long as I can read your handwriting. Okay, that is sometimes an issue for those of you that pre-registered. I have you printed out so I can read it. But I just noticed there's a couple of you that have signed in. It's a little empty.
It sounds like you referenced that we need to have our club,
I will have you in by Friday, don't worry.
our club to district MOU in place also before we can access the
Yes.
module. And that needs to be renewed each year.
It needs to be renewed each year. If you do not have it, what we're looking for is the president for next year and next year's president-elect to sign it and send the signature page to Judy. Judy uploads it to Club Runner. We hit the radio button that says MOU received. Your line turns green, and now you have access. If you don't have that, you might be trained, but you don't have access.
So those are the two things you need to get access to the
Yes. Now, the second MOU is the project MOU, and this is between the club and the project beneficiary, any other Rotary clubs that you have playing in this, any supporting organizations, or any NGOs. And the reason we want the beneficiary there is for them to acknowledge that they agreed to do this. You know, I'm working one now where they can't get an MOU out of the school district to agree to this grant. But we're not going to spend or approve spending the money for a grant if the school district doesn't want to sign something that says, one, we permit you to do that. Second, we realize that your responsibility ends once the project is done. And third, we assume the responsibility to maintain it. So if they can't sign that, you know, we're kind of stuck in square one. So they're the two MOUs. Now, where is the project MOU located? The project MOU is in the Word document that is a template for the application. So there's 5 or 6 questions, I can't remember, that you have to answer in the application. And again, going back to club communication, one of the reasons that Word document is there is because your beneficiary does not have access to Club Runner. Your cooperating organizations or other Rotary clubs don't have access to it. So now you have a document that you could work back and forth and refine what your application is and your budget, and it also has attached to it at the end of it the project MOU. And that's located both outside the grant module and inside the grant module. Yes.
Is this only for, is this district grants as well as?
This club, no, this club memorandum is only for district community grants. I'm sorry, the project MOU. Project. The club MOU is for both.
I know. Okay. So if you have a beneficiary that are girls in school, how do you get them to sign? I mean, is that a requirement?
Well, is there an organization that represents them? Are you doing this through the school?
Rotary Club.
Yeah.
Through this.
Yeah. Well, so we just want acknowledgement that, one, they agreed to it, Secondly, they agree that we're not responsible after we complete it. And third, they'll maintain it. The number one reason given worldwide for failed Rotary projects, when you go to the beneficiary and say, why is this broken? Their answer is Rotary never came back to fix it. So we want them to assume responsibility of this. Any other? Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to clear that up, because sometimes the project beneficiaries are, hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And there's no organization that kind of represents them. So what do you do with that?
I'll let Sally talk to that when she does the literacy one, because she had that same case.
Rotary had an organization, the Rotary Community Corps, and this is designed specifically for villages. And that's what I've done in the past, have 9 Rotary Community Corps, and they have charters. And so they are the people I look to, so that would be something you could look at.
Okay. And just to pick up the pace so I get Sally on, this is neither an entitlement nor a gift, because I've got a lot of grants that have come in that said, you know, we want to give our $3,500 to this organization over here because they're doing really well. So it's not something that you're entitled to. It's not a gift to you. It's something you apply for, and we go through the whole process.
Have you ever had a project where it wasn't a grant, it was an investment, things worked out right, would be returned? How would that be handled?
I'm sorry, a grant?
It was an investment where the goal was to improve the life of the people, but it wasn't a grant where the money just went away. Theoretically, the money could come back. Let's say it was like a microfinance.
Okay, back to the people.
Back to Rotary, back to the club.
Okay. We haven't done any microfinancing in the community grants. Most of those that I've seen are in the global grants. And do you bring that up? I'm going to have to check, see if we even have procedures for that. Some things that we've seen in the past that are prohibited, we don't pay for transportation for people into the country. Inter-country transportation we can pay for if it fits, but if you're going to Laos to do something, we're not buying your plane ticket. We're not paying for food or lodging for participants or volunteers, or operating expenses of another organization. There's the definition of humanitarian. It has to be completed within the timelines, and it must involve some Rotarian participation. Identify your partners. I'll defer to Sally on that because she has a good case on that. The budget's in US dollars. The grant software allows you to input amounts in a country currency and it will convert it. It's easier to just use US dollars. Maximum reimbursement is $3,500 US dollars. For the Canadians here, when you get your approval letter for a community grant, it shows the conversion, currency conversion from the Rotary International website for that month. Only Rotary funds are eligible for matching. So if you have someone come in, the Boys and Girls Club wants to throw in $3,000, that's fine. We don't match it. We only match Rotary money. Multiple club program that we did, this was in the Bremerton area. They did 3 food banks. There were 5 clubs participating. Only 1 club needed to be trained. The other clubs participated. They threw money in and they did things. They did publicity. They did some of the manual labor. But we could do that, and that allows you to get up to $10,500, assuming you have at least 3 clubs involved. I'll let Sally talk about the pilot summer program because she has one of those. If you're looking for ideas on My Rotary, this is not Club Runner. There's Rotary Showcase and Rotary Ideas. You can look for ideas, or you could just tell the world about what you did. That's on the YouTube. That's on YouTube. Individual project report. We're looking for club Rotarians doing something, some work. The best one I've seen so far is the chief of police of Squim on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor at the Boys and Girls Club in a closet. Photographs of the completed project, proof of life, the things actually got there, and appropriate receipts. For the individual project report, once you start it, look at what the requirements are. There's a template for the individual project report. Share that with the beneficiaries or cooperating organizations so you can start gathering data and you're not waiting until the end of May and saying, oh, I got to get this in, and you find out that the person you're dealing with is on vacation. Some contact information for us, some up here as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Sally so we can give her about a half hour.
Quick question.
Yes.
Where do we go to find these slides?
Send me an email and I'll send them to you.
They're on the website.
Are they now?
The October 2016 training slides are on documents on the.
Okay. So they're there, or if you want the most current one, send me an email, or if you have a question, call. Can we get a copy of the power? Yeah. Okay. I remember the question. Sally. Yep.
Go. Go ahead while I get this on here.
I'll catch you on a break, okay? No, that's okay. I'll catch you on a break.
Okay. Okay.
You wired together?
I'm wired. I'm wired.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Oh, okay.
Yeah, someone said calling the millennials. Here she is.
So while they're getting that ready, I just want to thank District 5020 for allowing us to have a pilot project to test going over 2 Rotary years, because often clubs have opportunities, but they have not been able to go after a district grant because it was a summer program. So thank you very much for allowing us to do this. Bob asked me to speak to finding opportunities and partners, leveraging resources, and measuring outcomes. And I'm going to use the example of the grant that we wrote for the pilot to go through that process. And we will address the MOUs and how do you assess community needs when there isn't an organized group within the area. When we heard about this grant, I'm going to talk about the process, and this is before we wrote the grant. The process that we chose to look at is that we understood that we needed to have alignment and momentum in our club. And the alignment was with the district guidelines, with your club services priorities, with your members' passion. If you want Rotarian involvement, you need to communicate, but you also need Rotarians who really care about it and who are willing to show up and be counted in the program. And this will ensure our project support and the hands-on. And I'm going to say right here with the alignment, we were in good stead. I mean, our club really was interested in youth programs. They're very concerned about high-risk kids in our area. So we had a good alignment with the basic description right off. But we went through the process of looking at the district guidelines, and we identified potential programs within our service area And we looked in regionally, were there some opportunities that might cross, we're very close to like Tacoma 8, Parkland, Spanaway. So we went through the process and made sure that we met the criteria for the grant. When we started looking at our own service orientation, there was a discussion with the board, is this something we want to pursue and evaluate? We went to our community concerns committee, asked them if there were projects or areas of need that they saw or opportunities that they saw. And from multiple sources within the club, the Springbrook, and we'll go over what the Springbrook project, it came up. And so we needed to look at whether this project was really wanted by the community, if it was something that was responsive to that needs. Springbrook is an area that is outside of Joint Base Lewis-McChord in this pocket separated from the rest of the city of Lakewood by I-5. Until this year, there were no sidewalks. Their bus service stops at 7 o'clock at night. The school is on the other side of I-5. There are no public buildings in Springbrook. And we'll go through a few of the demographics, but there really wasn't a place. We couldn't even go to the school and work with like a PTA that would be restricted to that area. So in understanding community needs, we had to look at a different way. The city of Lakewood had recently done a strategic planning process, and they contracted to have a consultant go in and area by area, community by community. They did a series of interviews which responded really well to what we needed, because they asked the residents, what is the most important? What are your priorities? And those priorities that were identified by Springbrook closely aligned with what our grant project was. Opportunities for kids, learning opportunities for kids, access to nutrition. Crime is very, very high in that area. The only public space is a public park. The city has invested a fair amount of money in that. There is a covered area now. They have done a great deal of work on sidewalks this year, but we had to look at multiple sources. There was another coalition called Lakewood's Choice, which is a youth organization that is really interested in substance prevention. But they also had done a community survey that was done in 2016. We went to Springbrook Connects, which was another it is special interest group, and their purpose is to work to make sure that the park stays a family-friendly place, because they've had so many issues with drug issues and other issues that the community has come together and they take an active interest in the park. They have brought in community gardens that started with 4 beds. We are now at 84 beds. So by looking at all these different pieces, we felt we could ascertain that it was responsive because of the surveys, and then we went and talked to some of the people that were involved in Community Choice, Springbrook Connects, and the school district. So that was how we approached it, and one of our participating partners who helped sign the MOU was from Lakewood's Choice, who has taken an active part in the summer program and committed to doing certain things. For instance, this group, when we start our summer camp, and I know I'm not talking about the details of the grant, but more that they would go door to door in the Springbrook area and help promote the program. That there were specific things that they committed to do to help us. So that before we wrote the grant, we were doing this. And I want to describe a bit about what the grant is. It's called the Springbrook Summer Camp, and it is a coalition of 10 partners. And it started shortly after 1999 when a 9-year-old was murdered in Springbrook, and the chief of police, Larry Saunders, who later became a member of our Lakewood Rotary Club, and Diane Formosa, who is responsible for Caring for Kids, which is a nonprofit that provides support to families, low-income families. And we're talking about back-to-school bags. We're talking about bedding. We're talking about clothing. It's a full range. Said, enough is enough. Something has to be done to bring resources into this area. And so informally, this group, this coalition of people came. The library brought in the bookmobile to help provide services. Public health came in and did counseling. It was informal and not coordinated. Over the years, because of the leadership of Larry Saunders, he got community groups to sit down and plan a summer. So this has been really a progression. And now, and we'll go through the partners, it's still a coalition in that St. Leo's Food has agreed that for the summer camp program that happens 3 days a week during the summer for 10 weeks, that they will provide a meal and a nutritious snack for every kid. And in addition, they set up a mobile unit outside the park to provide food to people in the community who need it. Okay? The library continues to come once a week. But there are other partners, such as the YMCA, that will help us with field trips for the kids. So they're not one of the listed partners, but they're going to come and do a program in the park with the kids on Monday and Wednesday, teaching them water safety. Then on Friday, a field trip will take the kids to the pool, and they will get to swim. And for most of the kids that we surveyed, they've never been to the pool. Getting to the pool, which is less than 5 miles away, is almost impossible because of transportation issues. So they get the water safety, they get the instruction, then they get that. And that's provided in kind by the Y. So this is where partnerships and leveraging comes in. The Y had difficulty because of liability insurance, okay? Because we now are all sitting at the same table. We have a representative. The city of Lakewood, who has the park, said, wait a minute, we believe that our insurance carrier can help with that while you're doing this. And so that is how we've been leveraging to increase opportunities for kids. But this gives you an idea, it gives you an idea of the community. I've talked a bit about this. I mean, truly, this is a very isolated area. And 93% of the kids are on free or reduced lunches. The school district has very limited summer school, and summer school does not exist in this area. So they have no learning opportunities that are organized unless they can go out of their community. So it's a pretty unique opportunity for us to bring learning to them. I embedded this in the PowerPoint. It does not work, but I wanted to give you a sense, but if the YouTube address is there. It is really remarkable because it shows how a community with communication can bring together resources, because the police, the fire department, public health, Franciscan health, different groups are there for the block parties, and it is the launch of our summer camp. Yes. I think we're going to go ahead because and Bob helped me with time. So what I just summarized is the process we went through, but I want to talk about this. We were very careful in looking at what our district community grants would pay for, and we needed to select how we would help fund. And the boys and girls are the primary program provider. They provide the youth development program and the structure of the program. So they are one of our primary. The other partner was Lakewood's Choice, which represented the community. And we very clearly negotiated the roles. We talked about how the funding would be distributed, what kinds of receipts, what kind of documentation we would need to have to do that. And we're going to talk a little bit about the outcomes and what we agreed up front that would be reported, and the commitment of the partners to do that so that we could have the stewardship and accountability that we needed to do that. The specific outcomes that we selected is the program serves kids ages 6 to 12, and we wanted 100 unduplicated youth. That is something the Boys and Girls Club will do. Part of, for teens in the Springbrook area, there really are very few employment opportunities. There's no grocery store. There are some fast stops at a gas station. Rose, you can help me. I think there's another little kind of, but there's not places where they can get experience. And we recruit teen volunteers and have them go through a program with Boys and Girls Club. And we have them do volunteer jobs to help build some employment skills and build their resume. So that was part of it. We looked at how many hours of adult engagement per youth. We have up to 4 community events, and the purpose is to engage the parents and the broader community in the program. And so through a series of programs, and that's in the planning, what we will do is we will engage everyone in the community with the summer camp. The Rotarian volunteers, really important. I think that how to do that, and we will have Rotarians helping as crossing guards. We will have them helping at the program activities in delivery of service and working one-on-one with kids. And they will help do mentorships, or mentors on field trips. And I'll give an example. The Fort Steilacoom college president offered Pierce College as one of the field trips, and a visit to the planetarium where the kids will get to go in the planetarium. They will bring in faculty to talk about different things you can do with that kind of educational degree. And then their students will do hands-on fun activities at that field trip. And so we'll have Rotarians there to help with that process. And the point is for a lot of these kids, this is exposure to different kinds of opportunities for them. It's helping them to see a world beyond what they know in their community. So it's really, that was what we were looking for. The libraries had come to the program, and there was some, support. But what we've made it is that 50% of the participants will complete the summer reading program. And we're tracking that. And the Boys and Girls Club will integrate reading every single day of the program into that. And they will have the kids have their record. And together at the end of the summer, the Lions will give every kid who participated in the day camp a free book. as well as the Pierce County Library Foundation. So leveraging your resources. How do you bring together what one person can bring to the table with what someone else can do to create a really cohesive program? And we are going to do a survey of the kids and the parents at the end about the quality of services provided. That is one that's a really hard one to measure. But, you know, I would love to say that this would help raise the scores, but there are so many factors, and you know, UW-Tacoma has not taken this on as a research project, so I thought I'd just give you a couple of pictures of what is proposed. This is from last year's, some of the pictures are from 2016 camp. These are the current core cadre, the Boys and Girls Club. They will provide 2 staff members plus 2 teen volunteers. Communities and schools will provide 3 to 4, and usually there are AmeriCorps students that will help with the program activities. Lakewood First Lions, Lakewood Rotary have been funders. Lakewood's Choice is a community coalition, Springbrook Connection, the Garden. The Garden is integrated into the program. Kids learn gardening. We teach them how to cook vegetables. So Lakewood YMCA, the library system, so you can see the partners that are already on board. And this is the structure of the camp. You can see the Libraries Explorer bookmobile that comes. And these are samples of program. It's fun learning opportunities balanced with an opportunity to build skills. And I think that the field trips happen on Friday. These are the former ones. With funding, we will be able to take the kids to places that we're not only getting in kind. So we could take them to the Pacific Science Center, or we could take them to a children's museum. And that opportunity to explore outside their community is really important. The community events, building trust in that community is really important. That was one of our obstacles, is that there was not a lot of trust in having their children come and participate. And through community events, we have the opportunity for parents and kids to meet us, get to know us, and the program increases. And the group and the coalition meets at the City of Lakewood came up that we really wanted these kids to have a summer to remember for good reasons, for the right reasons, and to meet the other youth development opportunities. Did I cover your MOU and sort of that partnership of how you assess community, you know, when there's no one?
My question was about project beneficiaries signing the MOU, and if they don't have an organization, umbrella organization, how do you address that?
We chose Lakewood's Choice, and we identified that it represented this part of the community, that it was, and then we provided other documents that through surveys through the City of Lakewood, blah, 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 that the need was verified. What we will do this year is do surveying to determine if that community need was met. Because there really isn't one place that represents that community. Yeah, it's an issue. Did you say the population of the core community? Well, it's 4,300 people approximately. The majority of them are under age 45. It is heavily Hispanic. And what was surprising to me was that it really is not military, even though it's right outside the gates of Joint Base Lewis McChord. It is not military. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think it's an amazing project you put together. What were the funds used for? How much money did you get and what were they used for?
We're funding field trips. We're paying for the fuel and the bus, and we are going through the Boys and Girls Club, who contracts and goes through a competitive bid process and does all the background checks to do that. We're doing 4 community events where we can bring in some providers to help really motivate that. We are doing a stipend for the teen volunteers. So the teen volunteers who achieve so many hours of service will actually get a financial reward for it. We are buying $500 in supplies for the program, and we are assisting with the staffing for the Boys and Girls Club, the youth development. And I'm just going to say that without them, this program would not be as successful because their youth development program is so exceptional and so coordinated. And Judy's standing there, and I think I need to hand over. But please, if there are other questions, come and talk to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to give me the mic?
No, I want to keep it. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you can all see, this is a fabulous program, and it fits right into our new summer literacy and nutrition pilot. So I hope that you're able to get some great ideas to help augment your district community grants. The one thing that I do have to mention is that if you do this, this is your community grant for the year, unless we can go to round 2. Now, that's not saying that we don't, because this year we went 3 rounds. So you do have another opportunity, but when you're planning your summer literacy grant for next summer, then you will know that that's your community grant for the year. Now we're going to break for lunch. There is a speaker at lunch, and lunch will be right up until 12:45. So please do try and come back at 12:45. And we do have another sign-in sheet for you, because if you don't attend the afternoon session, you are not qualified. And it's not that we don't trust you, we're just very careful and good stewards of our resources, right? So we are going to lock the doors. So if you want to leave your belongings here, go ahead. We'll have the doors locked. And please be back by 12:45, and I will unlock the doors. Okay, enjoy.